So our next topic of discussion is the co-working challenge, converging the demand and supply. And let me welcome our speakers of the panel now. Can we have the slide? Conducting this session of the co-working challenge, converging the demand and supply, will be our moderator, Sidharth Dhawan, Director, Agile Real Estate Lead, Asia Pacific for CBRE. Sidharth has over 9 years of experience across investment management, development, brokerage, and asset classes, and he heads CBRE's delivery of comprehensive agile real estate strategies for occupiers, investors, and flex space operators. His team also develops tools and resources to deliver optimized portfolios and higher yield assets for investor clients. A very warm welcome to Sidharth. He's joining us from Dubai. In fact, he heads the Singapore team, but he's there in Dubai and he's joining us from there. Sidharth, a very warm welcome to you. Now, let me introduce our speakers of the session in an alphabetical order. Our first panel member, Kunal Walia, founder and CEO, Simpliwork. Kunal, with 2 decades of experience from being a technology entrepreneur to investment banking and currently into commercial real estate, founded Simpliwork, which provides flexible managed workspaces and counts Fortune 100 clients like Rolls-Royce, Lufthansa, Alcatel, Lucent, Google, Siemens, American Express, and MasterCard amongst its roster of clients. So quite an impressive list, let me say. Our next eminent panel member, Manas Mehrotra, Chairman and Founder, 315 Work Avenue. As the founder of Nestavera Group of Companies, Manas believes that the ongoing process of brainstorming, innovation, and adaptation to change should always be the heart of an organization, and rightly so. Manas, he's also an angel investor and a Series A investor, and has 42 companies with businesses spread in India, Singapore, and Dubai. So a very eminent entrepreneur that we have amidst us in this panel. Our next very eminent speaker that we have is Neetish Sarda. He's the founder of Smartworks. With extensive experience in real estate, construction, and business operations, Neetish's current focus is on creating a completely managed and customizable offices. Smartworks in itself has attracted over 400 plus large enterprise clients across the industries, and in the year 2019, Smartworks raised Series A funding of $25 million from Singapore-based real estate giant Keppel Land. So that's a great achievement in itself. A very warm welcome to you, Neetish. Our next panel member, Parthajeet Sarma, is the founder director iDream. In fact, Parthajeet is one of the important members of this group because he's a workplace strategist and is the founder of the boutique consultancy, which is iDream, that has been hand-holding corporate organizations transition into new ways of working. He is also the India representative of leading global workspace strategy consultancy, which is called the Advanced Workplace Associates. He is a Chevening Scholar from Oxford University, UK, an architect with an MBA and a writer as well. So quite a diverse profile Parthajeet brings to this panel. Our next panel member, Rishi Das, co-founder IndiQube. Rishi Das is an accomplished industry leader and a well-recognized entrepreneur. His interest in diverse sectors has led him on a journey of growth across talent acquisition, HR management, and commercial real estate. This exposure has helped him create great value through the companies he has set up, namely CareerNet, HirePro, and IndiQube. A very warm welcome to you, Rishi, and we look forward to hearing your views on this very important topic. Our final panel member that I introduce is Vishwas Mudagal. He's the CEO and co-founder GoodWorks Coworking Spaces, and he's the MD and co-founder GoodWorks Labs Technologies. Now, Vishwas is a celebrity entrepreneur, best-selling author, social media influencer, motivational speaker, and an angel investor. Being a serial entrepreneur with hands-on technology and eye for innovation, his most prominent accomplishments are the massive success for his 2 companies, which I just mentioned, GoodWorks Labs, which focuses on technology and outsourcing, and GoodWorks Cowork, which focuses on co-working. This was our panel members, our moderator. I now hand it over to you, Sidharth, to take forward the conversation.
Thanks so much, Safa. Am I audible clearly to you?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Again, thanks again, Sapna, for this opportunity and for pulling this illustrious panel together of what we have, I guess, which is co-working operators on one end and workplace strategy on another. I know that we're obviously short on time, so hopefully we can probably just jump right into the discussion. Like Sapna mentioned early on, topic of discussion was the co-working challenge, which is marrying demand and supply. So we understand that at one end, the sector has grown cost in India over the last 4 years. Today, it's about 35 million square feet, which is close to about 5% of total office stock in tier one cities. At the same time, given the COVID-19 virus, I guess over the last 6 to 9 months, the office market has perhaps evolved. Occupier needs are also evolving on the back of the virus on a sort of what is the purpose of the office and what it means for them, and b how employees will access different kinds of spaces in order to eventually achieve sort of productivity. So with that sort of changing landscape on the demand side, what we want to cover today is really two things: a, how we see that demand changing in the first instance, and then b, on the supply side, how our co-working operators thinking about changing their product pricing, etc., in order to meet that sort of changing demand. So with that sort of preamble, perhaps we can just jump right in. And I want to start with you, Neetish, and maybe we can go to Rishi after. And my question is, once the pandemic is contained, hopefully soon, what is your general consensus on the return to the office as it relates to your tenants? And I'd love for you to touch upon so the timing. When do you expect them back? What will be probably the mix of employees? Do you think that will vary by culture, company, city? Would love to get your thoughts, Neetish, and then Rishi.
Oh, thanks, Sidharth. Thank you for having me here first. I think with respect to people coming back to work, what has really happened in the last month or so since the vaccines have been announced, people at least have clarity on when is that date, right, when they can start coming back to work. Up till now, on an average across the entire year, the occupancies in all of our centers have been close to about 10 to 15%. That's how much it's ranged since the post the lockdowns, and we've seen that maintained throughout. We've seen a slight spike in the last 15 to 20 days, in which that has gone up to about 25 to 30% already. We usually do a lot of talks with our, with our spokes of the different companies. We have over 400 companies sitting with us. We do these seminars with them in which we understand when are they looking at coming back to work. And one of the things that that's been synonymous across everyone who's looking at returning is that April is when they're looking at doing their over 50% occupancy. So by April, they're looking at getting back to at least 50%. And then by June is when people are holistically, on an average, coming to at least 70 to 75% of occupancy in offices. That's the trend so far, and I think the vaccines being announced has really accelerated that. People are more comfortable coming back now, and I think a lot of companies have also reached out and are arranging for vaccines for their employees. So we're definitely hopeful by Q2, end of Q2 this year, we will definitely see at least a 75 to 80% workforce back to offices.
Thanks, Neetish. And any thoughts on that, Rishi?
So I think what Neetish said, very similar kind of a trend is what we are seeing, that in the last 3-4 weeks, the activity has picked up significantly. But what we see is that, I think today if you look at whichever city companies have offices, almost I will say 50-60% people are still sitting out of that base location. For example, if somebody is in Bangalore-based company, then they may have 30-40% people who are in Bangalore. I'm not talking about office. The 60% are outside. Now, the big question is that in what form and shape these people are likely to come back. We see that a good number of them may never come back. We see that because today a lot of opportunities are coming up where people are saying that if you are in Coimbatore or Jaipur, can you work out of that location? See, when companies used to look at tier 2 locations, the big issue was that they never found the mid-level talent or the senior level talent. Freshers were always available. Now there are so many people who are in middle level who are sitting there that if you have to pick up 2 managers or 3 architects or senior folks, I think you can do that. And if one employer doesn't do that, we believe other employers will provide that, and that's where the competition will be very, very intense for that. So more than people coming back to Bangalore and not coming to office is my lesser concern. My larger concern is that how many of them will actually come back is where I see a 15-20% delta may happen because of that. Then there are a lot of push factors by which people are coming in. For example, if you look at the socio-economic profile of people, that's a very big thing, like BPO, where the salary levels are 15-20K. A lot of these people were staying in PGs. Now, on those people, there is a lot of pressure to come back because there is no concept of work from home for those folks. So junior level folks, even though the nature of work is technology, remote and all that, but the socio-economic profile is not allowing them to remain there and do that kind of work. The other will be, of course, if you are in the finance function, HR function, functions which require a lot of interaction, functions which are not individual contributor, I think those people will be more likely to be back over there. Third aspect will be that the type of organization, like certain organizations are a lot more work from home savvy. They already had the work from home policy, or their IT infrastructure was already geared up for remote working. I think those people are more, but if you look at comparably, Bombay, I believe more people will be coming back to office compared to, say, a place like Bangalore or Hyderabad or even Pune kind of places, which are a lot more IT dominated. So I think the type of organization, and then last but not the least, the culture will be another very, very important. These are some of the elements that we say will span out. Percentages wise, what Neetish said, I think pretty much we believe that over the period of 21, it will span out pretty much in that way.
Thanks so much, Rishi. I think it gives us a good flavor of, I guess, how is a can back culture and geography. Let's talk about the role of the office now, and I want to start with you, Vishwas, and then maybe we can go to Manas and after. Given the pandemic now, how do you guys see the role of the office evolving, and is the physical office still a requirement?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's amazing to be here and talking with everybody. The co-working cohort, whatever you have here. It's amazing to see people for the first time, I think, and it's you can see what has the pandemic done to all of us. For the first time, I think we are getting together, and that too online. Things have turned upside down for the co-working industry. Something that we never thought could happen. Pandemic has made it happen. And if you look at what it made, what the office is now, it's like we need to start from scratch. The concept of office itself is like something we are able to redefine at this point in time. And IT companies, which are the bread and butter for most of us here, the pandemic has kind of taught them how to live without an office. So that is a very dangerous thing, on one side, but it's an amazing thing from other side. I think it was inevitable for in the course of nature, maybe that they have to look at living without an office. So I think IT companies practically said, okay, now how do I live without an office, right? So they started moving everything remote. Everything was done remotely, except now when people are even coming back, it's going to be quite a challenge. Majority of the employees now, because I also run a tech company, and bringing people back to the our office is going to be practically impossible. And we are possibly looking at attrition. That people are going to hire them, and we need to hire some new folks who are willing to come to office, right? And what we have seen are for the co-working customers is large companies like for example, somebody is having a 1,000-seater office. They are now looking at just 200-seater or 300-seater, right? Because they just want to look at a roster kind of a mechanism, where some teams are coming in for certain time. Or for a specific purpose. For example, like automobile company has, needs to have certain hardware where you can need to test things on it. They need to come to the office, or it is a call center. They have to come to the office. Things like that, right? Or specific teams like accounts and finance, they need to come because of certain confidentiality reasons and stuff. So that is where we feel that people are like kind of scaling down. And as you guys have rightly pointed out, I feel that a network of offices maybe start making sense going forward. And especially for the smaller companies like startups and SMEs, they're practically done with. Most of them are like, I just need a virtual office for my registration and stuff. and for my post to come and come to the office, and they're sitting in Himalayas, work from home. It's become the work from Himalayas, work from anywhere. I myself, I was in Uttarakhand for 2 months, going to Gangotri, all the places.
More of them are in Goa, Vishwas, than Himalaya.
So I think those are some of the things that pandemic has given it to us. But I think if you ask me, is office required? Definitely. Now people realize that they cannot live without an office. We've gone all around a circle and come back and realize we need an office, but the definition of the office is going to be different. I think maybe the smaller offices or the hubs, we need to figure out. I think the company culture and the segment you are in and the size of the company, it's all going to work. But co-working is going to be back with the bank, with vengeance. That is a guarantee.
Thanks, Vishwas. Manas, same question. What are your thoughts on the role of the office now?
Yeah, hi Sidharth, and thank you everyone to be part of it. Here it's the only difference is you see yourself and 3-4 people. Otherwise, in the audience you see a lot of people. So I think that's the only flip side of being on a virtual platform. Otherwise, physical is always the better one. So just to add on there, as Ravi and Neetish mentioned about what they saw is around 3 to 5% and 50 people coming in. I have just divided into one more phase to it. So we have 5 to 10% people who are coming. But if I will say an entrepreneur or the founders of the company, 30 to 35% of the entrepreneurs have started coming in. So means they are coming, but the employees are not coming in. So they are pushing the guys to come into the office spaces, but somehow it's just not turning up. We have a very great example of one of our clients who, we were talking to, as what all they are doing and what all we could do. They're like, all our employees are sitting in a tier 2, tier 3 cities, and we've been trying them and giving them some kind of a bounce, a bonus or some kind of lollipops to come in back, but it's not worked. What they did as one of the options also is, they booked the tickets for a Goa party for 3 nights and back a ticket to Bangalore. Even after doing something like that, it just worked 15 to 20% for people to actually, come back. So that's a serious concern, which we actually see from the perspective and, how that mindset needs to be changed. But what we have seen, the people who keep coming, like it's matter of 15, 20 days to be there in office. Once you are there that 15, 20 days, you have the good amount of a confidence to be there around and, work this around. So I think that's one thing which is very, very important. Yes, post-vaccination information, knowledge and awareness. We do see, people coming in, the inquiries are floating in, the space requirements are quite different. If I see from a client to client's perspective, it's still, there are few clients who still want 4x2. There are still clients who are looking for a bigger, larger spaces. So, it's about more of a value add services or, collab spaces, which you can add on and provide in a different manner, is what we are seeing, or on the additional fronts in the services perspective, where we are seeing, like we ourselves got ourselves British Council certification done, or, there is a lot of services on the ionizations, which you can provide to these guys to give them a little bit of a comfort level. So these are some things which we have added on as a value adds to the clients, and looking forward for them to come back again. Basically, is that.
Thanks so much, man. And Kunal, I know that you've been vocal about, I guess, the bounce back of the co-working sector as well as the office in general, because of, I guess, trust deficit that I guess many employees may have. So I'd love to have you jump in here and talk about where you see the need of the office going now.
Yeah, Sidharth, I know you pressed for time, and you have a large panel, so I'll keep it short and brief. I think first and foremost, I'm not so worried about occupancy levels. I think the government here has done a fabulous job in kind of containing this pandemic to a significant aspect, and we are completely supportive of that. Does that mean businesses like us have to kind of suffer through some losses in the interim? I think that's fair. I think it's a burden that has to be shared across society. We seem to be part of that. Unfortunately, the brunt is a bit more on the commercial real estate than other spaces, but hopefully that kind of turns out in the better. So the actors that have worked in the right spirit and have cooperated, I think will hold hopefully good dividends in the future. Having said that, look, the office space is definitely something that's evolved. I think the work from home strategy that was talked about is being implemented fairly successfully. That doesn't mean that people don't need an office. That just means the need for the office is very different today. The need is very clearly about collaborative workspaces. You will have a lot more hot desking. We already have clients which have rejigged their office plans accordingly. The back to work kind of options have changed. I don't think the space requirements have shrunk, largely because the distances in that sense, especially the larger enterprises, are very clear. They need a lot more meeting rooms. They need a lot more telepresence rooms. In spite of all the great internet infrastructure we have, I think there is still the aspect of quality when it comes to high-end connectivity, especially for virtual conferencing, etc. And given that most of our commercial real estate, 60% is dominated by IT, whether it's back-end or middle office works, I think connectivity is a big factor. So the role of the office, I know you're constrained from time, I think is going to be collaborative going forward. We used to typically see 10 to 12, so one meeting room or one collaborative space for every 10 to 12 employees. That ratio has come down to about 5 to 6. And I think that's definitely going to be the trend going forward.
Thanks so much, Kunal. I want us to jump in from a workplace, perspective now. And I'd love, Neetish, perhaps for you to come in, and then Parth, perhaps, if that's all right. Are there themes that you're seeing emerge in your client portfolios? So, for example, what do you guys think is the future of seating assignments, especially in the light of Kunal's comments? So maybe we can start with Neetish. Neetish, you're on mute.
Sorry, my bad. So yeah, adding on to what Kunal had said, right, we think there are a couple of trends which are changing, which are enhancing the current requirements of office spaces. But these trends are basically, how can we onboard more collaborative spaces? How can the office spaces be designed in a way in which even if people are working from home, when they come to office, they have seatings that they can book. They're not restricting the office space to say that instead of 100 people, only 80 people can come to office. It just means that we're still going to take up 100 people, but we're going to give the people the flexibility to work from home whenever they choose to. So for that, there is a lot of digital innovation which is essentially required at this point of time. We've seen a trend in which people are now asking for hot desking solutions to be added to their workstations, and how can we remotely book it? How can we see the current occupancy trends of our offices? How can we sort of take a more data-driven approach to what our workplace strategy is? So I wouldn't really say that the workplace strategy is completely shifted or there is a new strategy in place. I think it's a work in progress. What has happened during what the pandemic has accelerated is the fact that now everyone wants to take a more data-driven approach and wants to see what is my occupancy currently, what are the things which are being utilized the most, and how can I enhance the experience for my employees to come back, which to Kunal's point earlier does not really mean that we're shrinking the space. It means we're keeping the space as it is, but we're just increasing the kind of amenities that we provide within the space from X to X++.
And Parth, I'd love for you to jump in here as well.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with the fact that Kunal spoke about the office as a space to actually come and collaborate, and what Neetish mentioned, that it is all about data-driven decisions now. Now, if I connect these two things, what we are actually now seeing is this whole industry has been used to actually taking decisions on the basis of certain benchmarks, certain indices which are there, like you need so much square foot for a person. The problem is, in this situation, you do not have those benchmarks. So what do you do? So what we've been actually doing is that we've been doing a lot of these surveys, and largely the larger narrative, and I'll just give you an example. We just recently did a survey for a large European multinational for the employees in India. Of course, the hypothesis was that the office is all about collaboration. But we were very surprised with one thing which emerged out of this, and this actually emerged from their employee base in Mumbai. A lot of people actually said that I need to go to the office because I need to do focus work, because I have my entire living room is my son's classroom, my gym, my everything. I just cannot do any focus work. Now, of course, that's a smaller percentage of the employee base. The larger percentage did say that it's about collaboration. So what this actually means is that the office is different things to different people. And where this is leading is that we've been talking about this for many, many years, is about activity-based working. You have different types of work. So work is not all about sitting on a laptop and typing things there. You do a lot of work otherwise also. So I think this spaces are being redesigned, or rather, like there is now clear-cut HR policies that focus work does not mean a work desk. There can be 5 different types of focus work modules, workplace modules. At the same time, collaboration is not just about lounges and fancy seats. It's a whole variety of spaces. So what you have is, like, I think what is emerging. I mean, this was, I wouldn't really call this that the whole COVID thing has been a game changer. It's just accelerated a few things, which was, for us, a lot of us, was supposed to happen. And what this really means is that I think it's the office is something like a college campus. You find your own space, right? Somebody finds it comfortable to bunk a class, he bunks that. He works from home. Somebody finds it comfortable to sit in the library. I think that's what is emerging overall, and we're very happy that in a way that COVID actually kind of accelerated this move towards that.
Thanks, Parth. I want to stay with you here, Parth, and then maybe get Kunal's comments as well. So, building on what you just said, how are your clients now thinking about capacity planning for their offices?
Yeah, I think one of the things is that this whole work from home policy, like you mentioned, one of you mentioned that some companies always had this work from home policy. But I think today everyone has that, and it has been accepted, and there are HR policies around that. That working from home is an extended part of your workplace. That's an extended part. And if you take the narrative forward, the people are talking about the hub and spoke model. People are talking about working from a neighborhood in a co-working center. So that is accepted now. And what this means is that, and you will know this, that you've been doing this, that we used to hear about things like sharing ratios, but now some new terminologies have emerged. What is a remote ratio? And you cannot find out a remote factor by looking at some kind of benchmarks, because the industry has no benchmark, and every industry has got different requirements, so that it cannot be the same for everyone. Somebody makes a comment in the media and says that 30% will work from home. You cannot base your strategy on the basis of that. So you do surveys. I think it's the key. What we've been doing is that we've been trying to find out this remote factor, and then you decide that if let's say, if 100 is my head count, my seat count actually needs to be less. And then once you arrive at, let's say, 30% is my remote ratio. So let's say 70% of seat has to be allocated. Within that, then you try and find out, okay, what's my collaboration factor? How much of work is actually collaborative work? How much is focus work? And on the basis of that, then you end up actually, kind of allocating different kinds of spaces. Now, one good thing, what we've noticed is that we actually just did a presentation last week on this, is that this does not mean, and I think this is good news, and we have evidence to prove it, this does not mean that you actually need less real estate. It is actually showing that you need same or even more real estate now, even if you have 30% less seat count than before. Why? Because you have a wide variety of spaces now to think of. You have more collaborative spaces. So I think that's how people are beginning to look at it. Everyone's got their own formulas, but I completely second what Neetish said, that it is all about data-driven decisions now. I think that's the way forward.
Thanks, Parth. Kunal, would you resonate with that as well?
No, absolutely. And I'll save you time. Everything Partha just said, a huge yes to that. I'll just make one more comment. I think what has happened, 6 months back when we were into the pandemic, just a quarter down, I think there was a lot of thought processes. I know, Sidharth, you were part of a lot of those exercises. How much money can we save by moving out of grade A to, let's say, a grade B or a grade C extension? And what has ended up happening is everybody there. 98% of those leases have got extended. People have stayed put. Yes, they've rejigged their offices, because I think one of the points that Partha made very well is, and I think Vishwas talked about this, while people are being bribed to come back to office, I think the best way to do that is to kind of give them more, right? So it's more amenities, it's more quality, it's more walk to work, it's more, shop in the same office that you're staying in. You don't have to get out. I think there is clearly an ideation from the top corporates that we work with that as much as possible, we want to give a safe, habitable atmosphere to contain all the employees in one place, whether it's adding kitchen amenities, whether it's making sure that we're moving to a campus which has integrated, from fine dining restaurants to pubs to playing areas, etc., so that we are able to kind of contain in a hygienic environment, provide safety, provide some kind of reassurance around that. And I think that's accelerated, if anything, right? So in that sense, that's really the change that we are seeing getting more and more pronounced as we go forward.
Thanks so much, Kunal. And I have one last question on sort of the demand side of things before we jump into the, the co-working operator supply. So I want to stay with you, Kunal, and then maybe we can get Rishi's perspective as well. So at the start of our panel, Vishwas was talking about how the office is sort of changing towards a network of locations. So how do you guys see this mix between, leased office space at one end, flexible space with you guys at another, and sort of working from home as a third? So how do you see this triangle playing out from a percentage mix standpoint, if you're able to share any commentary?
Yeah, I again go back and say what Partha said, right? There isn't a fixed percentage, right? It is very, very dependent on the corporate, the kind of work, the kind of teams within teams, which people need to be in office or sector. But, one of the secular trends that's got more pronounced, and, we worked with your teams on this, Sidharth, quite a bit, is all the large corporates, right? The top 20, 30 occupiers, all those discussions, which used to be, hey, do we look at flex spaces for our growth? Or should we straight away go into a campus consolidation? I think clearly that strategy has consolidated to the view that a certain percentage of our overall commercial real estate, it needs to be with flex providers. That decision making is coming not just from HR, not just from the CTO, not just from CRE, but it's coming overall from the CFO office as well. And that has to do with the whole risk factor, right? You are middle of the pandemic, you've got millions of square feet of space. Suddenly, what do you do with that, right? And how do you kind of take depreciation of all the assets that you put on the books into account for a period that it's not been used? And a lot of that is getting more pronounced, right? So you have very large names. I think we've been lucky, as some of the people on the panel have been lucky enough to kind of cater to those requirements, where very clearly a large company having a 10 million square feet portfolio has taken a call, 10% of all my portfolio in India needs to be with a flex space provider. I think that's clearly something that's happening. I don't know there's a fixed percentage between what office I get to keep versus somebody else. But honestly, when we started the business, we never thought we were the right product for a customer-facing office. So if you got a large multinational sitting out of Bombay, I couldn't imagine that the CEO, the CFO are going to be okay sitting in a flex space. But that's happened, right? And that's happening more and more. So to that extent, I think the trends in that favor. Is there a specific percentage? I don't think so. And one of the things we've learned from the pandemic, if nothing else, is we are very, very reluctant to predict things today. So we are happy to kind of take what's coming and live with it, but there are clear pronounced trends on that side.
Thanks, Kunal. And Rishi, your thoughts on sort of this percentage mix between flex, office, and home?
Yeah. So I concur what Kunal said on this point, and I will give an analogy. If you look at 2008-9, when the big financial crisis happened, that's a time when Infy, Wipro kind of companies first time looked at very seriously that what percentage of their workforce is going to be the temp workforce. And it was not a 0-1 situation. It was something where they look at blending. Typically that 10 to 20% of their workforce has to be flexi temp model. So I think commercial real estate will see that kind of a blending happening now, especially the large occupiers. The other thing, if you look at last 10 years, the trend has been more around consolidation. Typically, companies have been leaving offices, trying to consolidate, and the logic or narrative was more around economies of scale. I think somewhere this consolidation story will stop. There will be, so to say, more deconsolidation happening, where companies will look at distributed offices, either within the same city or intercity, basically like the tier 2 locations is where I see that. And another fact is that I think this will lead to a lot of democratization of talent. If you look at, I think the key driver for all this is going to be the employee. The hero of the story is the employee, because IT sector doesn't build good offices to attract or retain or attract their customers. They build good offices to attract and retain their employees. So I think that democratization of talent will happen. I don't think that people will commute any longer 2 hours a day to reach office, half an hour, 45 minutes. And if their employers don't accommodate that request, somebody else is there to offer them those jobs. So these are the places where basically the decentralization, so to say, will happen, blending will happen, and we will see a lot more opportunity going to tier 2 towns or within the places like Gurgaon, Manesar, or those kind of locations will possibly pick up more. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Rishi. I think we spent a good. Sorry, go on. I think we spent a good amount of time on, I guess, how the demand side is changing from the occupier side. I think we can spend a bit more time now on how you guys as co-working operators and workplace strategists are then evolving your product to meet this new kind of demand. So I want to get Neetish, your perspective first, and then maybe we can move to Manas. And I want to get your sense on what will be the use case for flex space now in a post-COVID environment? Do you feel it will be a network of locations like Vishwas was saying earlier? Are you hearing of hub and spoke models? Are you seeing more demand for managed spaces because clients want to save capex? Just give us a flavor. Also, from a average tenant size standpoint, from a lease length standpoint, because you're seeing deals every day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if you look at it from the point of view of a service provider like us, and as well as the tenant, right? From a point of view of a service provider like us, I think what we are looking after now is a more integrated solution, right? Earlier, average co-working in India would be about 30, 40 or 50,000 square foot of space per center. I think that number is going to go up significantly, right? We are now averaging anywhere between 150 to 200,000 square foot and targeting to get to about 300 to 400,000 square foot at least per center. That way you can integrate a lot of amenities which are required by today's workforce into your space, right? So that is one trend from a service provider point of view in terms of supply. I think with respect to the clients' requirements, I think it's a mix of all, right? There are a bunch of clients who are looking at hub and spoke, right? Because for them, that sort of model works. People who are into distributed, who have distributed offices across. Earlier, we're looking at consolidation, to Rishi's point earlier, but now has started saying that why can't I tap the local workforce and have 5 offices spread across a city like Bangalore or Bombay instead of having a consolidated office in one location, right? So that is definitely going to be there, but there is a huge group or set of people who are still working on consolidating and having one managed office solution in one building, right? These are players who have their R&D centers, where they need different sort of people to work together and have that kind of a setup growing. So I think it's a mix of everything. It's not just that a hub and spoke model is now going to work. Yes, that has picked up because earlier people were looking at consolidation, but then there is a different set of people who are also looking at having a standalone building and coming to a managed office solution like ours. I think the biggest trend which is picking up amongst all of this is standardizing your office experience across geographies, right? For a lot of these companies, while we were doing that earlier, but they were only looking at moving a certain portfolio to flex space. To Kunal's point earlier, I think when 1 year down before pandemic, people might be looking at 10 or 20%. I think that number is going to shift up significantly, and that my projections are going to go above 50% for a lot of these enterprises, right? Because they would want to standardize these office experiences for their employees across geographies and want to have someone who can sort of keep learning and changing it for them depending on the trends that arise, right? And we are perfectly fit to do that, whether it's with respect to the technology that needs to be integrated within the spaces, whether it's with respect to the collaborative designs that need to come in. So I think that trend, instead of a 20-30%, that is going to become at least a 50 to 60% of these MNCs portfolios that are going to shift to a flex space.
Thanks so much, Neetish. Manas, what's your take on average sort of customer ticket size? Is it increasing, decreasing?
Add on there, from Neetish's point, as what we have seen in December, we see that for another 6 months, the scenario is going to be something similar to what we have seen in December, which is basically the requirements are in the range of 100 seats to 500 seats. The demands are pretty good. In the month of December, we have seen 100 seats closer, but spread across 3 clients. And we have inquiries coming in, but the inquiries are in the similar ranges, which is less than a 500 seaters. There are inquiries of a larger seat places, but it's a very, very less percentage to look at it, as an overall. But yes, post 6 months, when people are little more confident, vaccination has gone through, to the common people, and everybody has received it, then probably, yes, you will see a larger seats requirements of 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 being taken up. And that will be really important that, at that junction, you should have a great amount of an availability with you, from the supply side, so that you are able to, create that demand and take these guys into your portfolio. So I think it is very important from that perspective, to keep yourself ready for this coming in. But as and then whatever is coming in, start picking it up to the extent of 200 to 500 seats from a requirements perspective. We have good demands from an enterprise office space perspective, and that's what we have been catering to.
Thanks so much, Manas. Shwas, I want to get your perspective here, and then perhaps we can go to Rishi, which is, Neetish, for example, spoke about how employers are seeking consistency of experience across, co-working operators. What other demands are you hearing from your tenants, specifically from co-working space in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, so I believe, right, when I look at the customers been interacting for the last 3-4 years now, and the perception about co-working and the demands from the co-working from the customers have constantly evolved, and they expect the moon from us. If you really ask, they really expect the moon from us, because they don't expect so much from themselves, but they expect from us. that is the whole point, because the minute you are like a co-working player, that means, hey, it's cool. For example, we have a few Fortune 100 customers. We have like Tesco, BMW, and the only thing I ask them is, well, why don't you just take your own office? What is there, right? But a lot of other, there are many reasons why they come to us. But one of the thing is that they want something cooler, right? So we are very focused on design, for example. So they want amazing designs from us. They want a great infrastructure, having food and all that whole the whole ecosystem, that facilities that we're talking about, right? Neetish was also mentioning that having a larger space right now where we can give them like an ecosystem where the employees, ultimately, that Rishi was talking about, employee is a king, right? So it's all about attracting them. So if the demand in the future from the customer, it's going to be employee centric itself. So all that we got to do is figure out how do we pamper this employee at the end of the day. That's all we need to figure out, looking at their productivity perspective, looking at their health and safety perspective, because now we know that this pandemic, one has happened, another can come, right? So how do we already prepare for it, an eventuality like that? And then also look at the privacy and IP and all that, right? One of the key things that our customers, co-working customers, they're like, hey, it's like a co-working thing, or what will happen to my IP right now? What's going to happen, right? So for that, of course, many different formats came up. Like you have your managed office, you have dedicated offices. Co-working as a concept itself was a whole of B2C kind of a model. Now, like majority of everybody is here, they're all getting into B2B majoritarily, I'm sure, right? So the whole concept itself is evolved. So in the future, I feel that co-working will evolve into something that is much more holistic, something that is much more like a perk that the enterprise is going to look at, saying that, hey, 50% of my workspace is into co-working, and this is the reason why you need to come and work with me. So that is going to be the differentiator. That's why we have to step up, and I'm sure that a lot of investment is going to come into this segment and help us get there. I think we have to innovate for the industry. I think everybody here in this panel, I think we are the the front runners. I think we need to push. It's up to us. What we want this industry to become.
Thanks so much, Vishwas. Rishi, would you agree with Vishwas on co-working operators now having to double down on the central?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the employee centricity, I will put it in 2 words. If you look at the ease of doing business and the employee centricity, I think these 2 will be the key drivers, and that will mean the amount of B2B, B2C services which companies basically will expect all of us to provide is going to be humongous. And when you do so many things, when you start providing them economies of scope, I think the key thing here will be technology. And technology will evolve to a level of a platform. So, for example, today we see all of us have 2 apps for pretty much everything that we the number 1, number 2. That's where you rarely see a number 3. I definitely see that on everybody's handphone there is going to be one office management app, whichever it is basically, and that app will be like your lifeline, where you will be managing your parking, your food, all the benefits that your employer might be providing you, and so many other things. So I see that kind of a scenario coming up fairly soon over there. The other thing is because now larger enterprises are coming up. So as a result of that, there will obviously be pricing pressure. A lot of models will move towards a cost plus model. So we see that a lot of engagement models will move to more outcome based, or basically which are not going to be input based. Like typically, if you look at very typical facility management has been a cost plus markup kind of a thing. I think more and more companies want a per employee. Of course, our per seat model was always geared up for that. But if you look at the amount of data in last 4 or 5 years, which our industry has been able to collect, I think our ability to provide a lot more outcome-based, output-based solutions to our clients is increasingly going to be there. And then, of course, last but not the least, I think Neetish brought up the point about consistency. So I think people are looking at standardization in a very, very big way. So these are some of the things where definitely companies will expect. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Rishi. I want to now, jump back to Anas perhaps first, and then we can go to Vishwas. All of you guys actually spoke about how there is a need for co-working operators to keep evolving their product. Rishi just spoke about the technology element as well. How are you then planning to then A, change the pricing, B, change the product mix? We've heard, for example, talk around demand memberships, talk about virtual offices, etc. I'd love to get your sense on how you see your product and pricing mix in the next 2 years, Manas, and then Vas.
So, pricing is definitely a very important perspective, which is going to play a very important role. There has been a lot of co-working guys which has come in last 1 year, 1.5 years. So it's all about, there is a lot of consolidation also, which we will see from the market, which might happen. A few might even, shut down their shops if you are not able to raise funds. So I think the ones who are sitting strong, with a good portfolio, good business model set in, I think it's always, they're going to always be there, standing strong to take it up and, carry the business on. But as an opportunity, we see, consolidation is a great opportunity also to, look into, and we are keeping our eyes open if there is something which comes in from the perspective too. When we see the clients, even today, the clients are, yes, very particular about pricing. It is definitely they're asking much more things which they were asking before from a requirement perspective. But also they are asking from the pricing that needs to be on a sustainable water.
Thanks, Manas. Vishwas, thoughts on the product and pricing mix?
Yeah, I think Manas has covered quite a bit. So a couple of things to add to that is, if you look at last year, especially, I think virtual office has been a hit. I think huge number of inquiries, a lot of conversions there. Although the ticket size is very small, but I think that gives like a alternate revenue stream for all the operators. I believe that there's crazy amount of impetus there, right? I can see like that has changed quite a bit, because people just want it for like registration purpose or GST purpose. That is something that I feel that has come up, and a lot of membership options where I think people are looking at not only the space, because they cannot come and operate out of there, but they would look at what are the benefits they can have. It's like, you get like AWS, Amazon credits, some discounts for certain software, or what is that value proposition give? Even though I'm not coming to office, what is that I can do, right? So the thing post pandemic, people are trying to figure out, okay, how is that? What more we can give apart from just one office space? I think those are some of the things that have come up right now.
Thanks so much, Vishwas. Quick time check, guys. I think we have about 10 minutes to go, but I think we'll be okay on time. We only have maybe a couple more questions. So I want to go back to you, Neetish, and then Kunal. I guess the group has spoken about how there might be demand coming in from tier 2 cities. Rishi spoke about that early on. We spoke about grade B buildings and deal structures, etc., changing. I'd love to get your sense on how your expansion plans are changing in the light of changing. You're looking at different kinds of buildings, different cities, different deals differently. So let's start with Neetish and then we'll go to Kunal.
No, absolutely. I think obviously secondary getting into tier two cities is also something which will sort of get accelerated, right? We were anyways looking at getting into the tier two cities last year, but I think but you know the footprint in tier two cities are never going to be as big as the ones that are there in the city. What is going to change in the city is cities are going to pick up more managed office solutions and much larger facilities. These are not typical co-workings with 20, 30, 40,000 square foot. They're going to become much larger campuses, the 200, 300, 400,000 sort of setups. And then the co-working slash business center sort of concept is going to get into your tier two cities, right? Where you'll have multiple offices spread across tier two cities like Coimbatore, Bhubaneswar, in which you'll have a 10, 20, 30,000 square foot office which caters to the back office requirements a lot of your enterprise clients which are going to come into the city. I think that's the biggest shift that we're going to see. Tier two cities are going to grow, but tier one cities are going to dominate the net absorption, and but tier ones are going to grow in a much larger setup. Which is the shift from individual floors to individual buildings, from taking just say a small portion in a large facility to looking at taking up the entire facility and adding retail, adding gyms, adding all the components that are required within the space.
Thanks. Kunal, any thoughts on expansion plans?
No, I mean, tons of them. Obviously, I think very bullish on the space overall, and I think there's clear trends which are leading to acceleration. I have a slightly different view than most others on this panel when it comes to tier two cities in India. We don't feel our product is a fit for that, and that's more to do with us than the city issue per se. We think 90% of commercial real estate leasing is between 6 cities in India. Has been the case for the last 12 years. Seems to be getting more and more consolidated. Bangalore always happens to be the number one in terms of real estate absorption. Has been consistently, doesn't look like it's slowing down. So we'd rather focus on the 90% and getting a decent market share there, than kind of going into the tier two towns, etc. We also have a very strictly large enterprise kind of a model. So in that sense, our overheads are typically lower compared to most others in this space. And we are very, very careful about overheads in that sense. And every time you establish a center or a city, there is a certain amount of overheads that you have to incur. We don't think our product is geared up for it, but of course, India is ready. And, like to Rishi's point, I think you will see more and more of that. So hopefully, maybe 5 years down the line, but today we're very happy where we are with the product we have. We see more and more consolidation. There is a bit of hubris when we talk about amenities being provided by co-working operators and standalone buildings. We look at a product like CyberHub of TLF. You're talking about what, 17, 18 million square feet of office space, having about 500,000 square feet of retail, F&B, all of that put together. I don't think any co-working operator can compete with that. We would rather collaborate with the grade A products and be part of their strategy. Look at collaborations from that perspective, then kind of try and create an alternative setup for that, especially because ours is a less asset heavy model, right? So we really can't incur those capex costs. It is very hard given the duration of client contracts, the typical churn that you see. You have to worry about your day 2 and day 3s here as well after your first customers moved out. So we are happy, right from the start, being part of campus buildings, being part of campus environments. We continue to stick to that. We still have reluctance about standalone buildings, not because of anything else. I think, construction quality and all of that is really improved. I just think for our kind of a product, the customer that we go after is typically looking at a certain amount of amenities and is definitely looking at qualification from a quality or a campus or a total availability of space perspective. So to a certain extent, I think we are slightly different with respect to everybody else. So for us, the grade A strategy continues to be where we focus on and where we double down.
Thanks so much, Kunal. We're almost at kind of the end of the discussion, and what I want to do is get into sort of crystal ball gazing mode. I know, Partha, that you're a workplace future, so I want to give you the stage and try and understand what are you most hopeful about, and what are you, on the other end, most fearful about as it relates to the future of the co-working sector. So I'd love to get your perspective, Partha.
I'm not really the authority to speak on this, but I was just picking up, a few words that some of you spoke about. I heard the word cool office. I think people wanted to be in co-working spaces because it looks cool. Now, I'll tell you a funny thing. We've been working with a lot of occupiers, and this was the narrative that we used to get. oh, I saw this beautiful co-working space. We need something like that. That was a vision, without any understanding of the fact that there's a lot of science and evidence behind what you guys do. And like I think Rishi mentioned that, there's a lot of outcome-based solutions that there's always been a focus on that, because you have a beautiful looking cafeteria where you can go and have a coffee, not because it's cool, because it gives that opportunity for two people to meet, and there's idea sustainability. Somebody is a thought, somebody else adds on to that thought, and that's how co-creation happens. So I think to that extent, I think co-working industry has been the front runners of activity-based working, and this has been based on science and evidence. And to that extent, I think it's a very good time. And interestingly, I've also met people in the recent past who said that we are starting new co-working centers, and I said, why? This is not a good time. They said it's the biggest opportunity ever. And to some of the comments that you mentioned, I think yes, there may be a bit of consolidation. There may be a few guys who will actually have to shut shop. I think people who do not have the holding capacity and who have a lot of baggage, yes, they may suffer. But otherwise, I would think this is the best time ever, I think. Because you guys started this whole idea of how the office should be like.
Thanks so much, Parth. I have one last prompt. Actually, maybe I'll start with Kunal, and I'll just open it up to the panel. And Sapna, maybe you want to open up for the Q&A after, which is, I guess a large part of the audience for this panel is landlords. And you have a lot of you have a frenemy relationship with landlords. At one end, you're leasing space with them. At some level, you're also competing with them. So, what are your thoughts? Starting with you, Kunal, and then happy to get anybody else's thoughts as well. How do you see your relationship with the landlord evolving?
No, I think look, to a large extent, right? We have no confusion in our heads, right? We can't compete with landlords. I don't think that's the equivalent of the staying in the water and kind of having enemy with the biggest, baddest person out there, right? So clearly, that's never been the case. We're very conscious of that. We're very collaborative on that aspect as well. We're very, very sensitive to the fact that our entire dependency of growth, business sustainability is driven by somebody else's capital. And we're very respectful to that as well. So to a large extent, wherever possible, we've evolved business models. We've recently concluded, literally in the last week of December, a fairly large 1,500-seater transaction for one of the Fortune 100 financial clients. And the way that happened is, the RFP was supposed to be a service provider RFP, but the space that they had selected was one of the campus grade A developments. And we had to go sit down with the developer and convince him to partner with us on that opportunity, right? And that's the kind of win-win that we are always looking to create. We are singularly focused on the fact that a large part of the business in India, in terms of dollar and profitability, is dominated by top 15, 20 real estate developers. And given that as a basis, we want to partner with them rather than compete with them. So we've done that in Hyderabad. We've recently done that in Bombay with one of the largest developers as well, where we help them work out a strategy that we could retain one of the clients who was trying to move out for a cost saving perspective. So we are happy to kind of work on that basis. Look, like I said, right, I mean, there is a lot of hubris in this space, and I think that's very natural for any space that is relatively new and is attracting capital and is seeing a steeper trajectory of growth. But I think it's very, very important for us, especially how some of the actors have worked out in the pandemic, that we stick our necks out. When the profit is ours, the losses have to be ours as well. Having said that, the intelligence has to come in that you collaborate with these guys rather than compete with them. You will have developers which need you. They also understand that. I don't think every developer out there looks at us as competition. I think there is a large acceptance, especially with the large developers, that they do need a differentiated offering, not just to retain the clients that they have, but also to attract new. Because one of the things that's changed over the last 2 years is there are specific RFPs for very large space requirements from large customers, which are specifically coming out only for co-working providers. And that has set the cat amongst the pigeons, so to say, right? So there is a significant amount of competition between landlords to say, hey, I want to kind of align myself or partner with a product that works for my brand advantage. We've done some of that in Bombay, and I think we're going to be selective about where we want to kind of share the profitability, but where also the risk is very high on us, right? So the right partner approach is our mantra when it comes to landlords. I don't see that as a frenemy relationship at all. Yes, to a certain extent, the capital sources are always intermingled, so you do talk about it. But more importantly, we see a sea change from landlords as well, who are very conscious today and very welcoming. Yes, they are very, very selective about who they want to partner with. Again, like I said, the industry is not done any favors because of bad actors. But as long as you can qualify, as long as they are satisfied with your track record, and I know new leases when we are coming in to sign today, there is a significantly first question being asked before the lease is signed, which is, what did you do during the pandemic? Were your payments on time? Did you kind of come back? Was it an amicable solution? And I think that karma is going to go forward for a lot of us in the industry as well. You will see more and more collaboration around the product itself, whether the capex is owned by them or by us, whether it's a flexible lease, whether it's shorter lock-ins, etc. I think the landlord side has a lot more sensitivity towards the kind of risk they're asking us to carry today, which didn't used to be the case maybe as early as 2 years back. So to be fair, I think we are fairly on one side of this debate, right? Landlords are the bread and butter and the only resource we have if you want to kind of compete effectively in this business.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Kunal. I think with that, we've sort of come to the formal end just on time on the panel. So thanks so much, everyone, for your time. Sapna, I'll hand it back to you. I know you had some Q&A.
Yes, we have few questions. In fact, we have many, but because of the time, we have taken just few. The panel has spoken about what the employees' expectations are and what the occupiers' expectations are. One question has come to us: this co-working spaces are tailor-made for startups, but how do you retain that clientele, because they have the tendency to move fast from looking at the cost benefits? Sidharth, I leave it to you to open to the relevant panel member.
Sure. Neetish, would you want to take a stab at that, and then maybe we can go to Rishi?
Sure. I think, whether it's a startup, enterprise, or an SME, what is really important is to make sure that, your employee experience, you're taking care of everything that is required, right? Because once you get used to that sort of experience, moving out of that is very, very difficult, right? So I think it's just about changing the way people look at offices. Once you've given them things, it's very hard to take that back for even the entrepreneurs looking at shifting to a different place. If there are multiple amenities present within one of the locations and you ask them to go to a location which doesn't, I don't think employees would be open to that. So I think more than cost, more than just the financial bit of it, I think it's about the experience. The more complex, one of the things that I was told by one of our mentors when we were starting initially is the more complex problem that you solve for your customers, the more customers will you'll retain, right? So I think that's the solution to retain any sort, whether it's a startup, SME, or an enterprise.
Sorry, I'm forgetting that. So any startup comes, we mostly advise them that, look, this is not the office. This is our office for you. Because most of them cannot predict that after 12 months, 24 months, where they are likely to be in. So one thing we do. And then there is always a trade-off between the commitment they can provide us in terms of lock-in or visibility of stay vis-a-vis customization that is done. So with a lot of startups, we say that start with whatever is more standardized to us, so that if tomorrow we have to move you, we don't have a lot of exit cost. And at the same time, we provide you the flexibility to grow. Other fact that we take care of is that for most of the startup, it really doesn't matter that if I am in building 1 or 2. What they are most worried is that micro market should not change. So for example, if they are in Koramangala and you are moving them within a 1 kilometer radius to another property, they are absolutely comfortable with that. So I think that is the strategy, that don't provide them very, very customized products, because for them it's a luxury. They can't give you the commitments. The other is try, whenever you have to move them, try to move them in the same micro market.
Okay. So that's a great strategy. If they are looking at cost cutting and they're looking at moving, give them the right solution, the right option for that within your own group. Another question, that's a opposite one. How do you attract the corporate clients? Because not for everyone, the downsizing is the reason for going for a co-working space. So how do you attract that client?
Can we have Parth address that question? I know that he's the closest as it comes to understanding occupier needs and then translating that into their strategy. So Parth would love your perspective.
How do you attract people to co-working spaces?
The corporate clients, because downsizing is not always the reason for going for a shared space. So how do you get the corporate clients?
I think one of the things which has become very amply clear now, and although there's been a lot of science and evidence and talk around this for a long time, that that the point that I made earlier is that work is not only about sitting on a desk. It's also a lot more about collaboration, different kinds of activities, different kinds of activities. And this is something that most occupiers have understood now with all these, new terms which have emerged. And this is something that the co-working industry has always been providing. They have now understood that there's a reason for it. There's science and evidence behind this. There is a mutual fund, I think, in the US where it actually shows that companies listed at NASDAQ, which have the best offices to work from, their stocks actually perform far better than the average Nifty level. So there is a lot of financial evidence behind all of this. So I think with this realization, it does become helpful for the co-working industry to actually talk about more aggressively about the hub and spoke model that is being spoken about a lot, and people are actually acting on it now, beginning to act on it. And I think this movement is only going to grow. I think that's a huge opportunity there.
Okay, so one is the kind of spaces, the designs that you provide. The other, what Neetish said, the amenities that you can provide, that is kind of going to attract the clientele.
Yeah, it's not about just a cool office and a good looking office. I mean, that was the understanding, and people have realized now. It's not that. There's something behind this, some reason behind this. I think
there is the science behind the art.
Yes,
as well.
Yes.
Okay. One financial related question is that how do you address the challenge of, on one side is the long-term lease contracts with the premise owners, but on the other side you have the short-term contracts with the occupiers, which kinds of creates a financial gap for the operators. How do you address that challenge?
Could we have Manas address that, if that's all right, and then maybe we can have Vishwas's perspective on the same question.
Yeah, so basically, when you take up a building, you're taking up a longer term periods like 9 years. So you should be bullish about that particular location and the market, what you're taking up the place in. You should look into that. There will be an appreciation which will be more than the percentages what you're going to be paying to the landowners. To keep it going for you. So initially, yes, you get a client along with you. If it's a back to back, if it's not, then you're taking a call again, naked call over the market. In respect to that property, and you are having a client coming in on that respective property, but it's all about the market trends, what you want to focus upon and where you are very bullish about it. You have to take those calls and keep moving around for your perspective from that angle.
Okay, just to add a couple of
Vishwas.
things. Yeah. So there's no one answer to this. So it really depends on what is the micro market you're playing around with and what kind of building you're playing around with. So it really depends on it. So we've had typically sometimes what we look at is if a distressed asset, that sometimes we go and take a look at it and see how we can revamp it. That's when we typically get a longer duration with some revenue sharing or a profit sharing kind of a model. That's where, of course, the lease term that we sign up is about, say, 9 to 15 years kind of a thing, where it is like a profit sharing kind of a model. That's where we are turning around like an asset, basically, right? So, and then we bring in an anchor customer, like typically a corporate customer or MNC, and then, bringing back the space alive. These are centers, these are tech parks, which are sitting idle, and, people are not able to monetize it. So we have turned around a couple of them like that because we, like I said, very design focused. We are able to bring that, a sense of what a corporate needs, basically, from the enterprise, infrastructure perspective, compliance perspective, design perspective, technology perspective. We're going to bring that, of course, and then work with the landlords to either they put in a capex, or of course we put a part of the capex, or we have the anchor customer put in for the security deposit and stuff, right? So it really depends on what it is. If it's a back-to-back, of course, we do exactly the same kind of a tenure. So there is no one method to it. Yeah.
Okay. Kunal, would you like to add something very quickly? Because here the question is why the outgoing is fixed because you have taken for 9 years, 15 years the lease, but your income is not fixed because these are all short-term contracts with the occupiers.
Yeah, Sapna, I suspect this is coming from a financial due perspective or an investor looking at an answer. So I mean, this doesn't really concern most CRE decision making. Look, the longer the lease, and the lease is really a right and an asset on the balance sheet, like Manas said rightly. What you have to worry about is the lock-in, not the lease tenures. The lease tenure mismatch doesn't matter in this space. What matters is what's your lock-in mismatch. What's the lock-in you're given to the developer, and what's the lock-in that you've got from the client. I think most of us are smart enough and evolved enough in our financial planning to kind of make sure there is no mismatch there. So that's the short and sweet answer. The longer detailed answer, I should be getting paid for, honestly, right? But that's the short and sweet one here.
Okay. So that we have one last question for you as well. One of the viewers has asked us, what is the comparison between, because you are taking care of the epic markets, and so how the co-working or the agile real estate, handling there, and what is the comparison with the Indian market? Just the overview on that.
Sure, Sapna. Let me try and address that from an APAC lens first, and then maybe I'll come to India. So I do feel that post-pandemic, that there has been a change in the way that office occupiers are, occupying their, footprint. The eventual goal that most organizations are chasing, I think, is productivity. So what they're telling us is, hey, our job as an employer is to enable that productivity for the employee. Now that productivity could be at home, that could be at your traditional office, it could be in a flexible space as well. So really, most large occupiers, and especially the ones we speak to who sat here in Singapore or Hong Kong, etc., they're thinking of the hybrid office as their future. And of course, that varies by company and country and sort of industry. But at a larger level, I do feel that demand is shifting towards that hybrid office. And so it's incumbent on advisors like ourselves or co-working operators, such as the ones on this panel, to enable that productivity. And that may be via space itself, that may be via technology, etc. So those are themes we're seeing anyway. Now, how it may differ slightly from an India perspective is there is a lot more demand from the ITES or the banking sector in India. And that, I think, has supported and will continue to support demand from, for enterprise space or managed space, which, Kunal and Rishi sort of spoke to earlier as well. So I do feel that demand for managed space will continue in India, given the local market nuances, because of the kinds of jobs that exist. That said, the way that companies occupy their footprint, because it's the same companies everywhere, I do feel that the hybrid office will, I guess, become incumbent. I do feel that technology will have a large role to play across geography, including APAC, including India. And then, of course, it may vary slightly by city, by local micro market, etc. I know that Kunal had made a point, because he and I had the same discussion the other day, and he was talking about how that there may be cultural differences in the way that employers may think about their footprint in India versus other markets. So Kunal, I'd love to get your perspective here as well, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. I think to a large aspect, right, it goes back to what kind of economy we are, and clearly India has been for the longest period of time, and hopefully it will change, but at this point of time is what we classify as a trust deficit economy, right? So unlike an income tax where people are on time at work at 8 a.m. or I have no cases where bankers, at least I work with, are there at 6 a.m. right? And they do their work. There's a 20-minute lunch, and they're back at work, and they go home at 4, and that's how you achieve a work-life balance. In India, that's your biggest pet peeve, right? That you have a large part of the workforce which is, let's say, not to the level of professionalism. And that's not to take away with how hardworking people are or how intelligent they are. It's just a cultural mindset, right? You do have a lot of water cooler movements in India, far more than the water being dispensed, to be sure. And there is that aspect of the middle management that comes in, which wants to kind of see the work being done in front of them. And I don't know if it's so much a millennial issue, or is it the issue given the fact that a lot of the managers today have grown up over the last 20 years, where that's how they've been managed. So that's the learning that they have. And they are really finding that tough, right? In terms of how do you kind of justify remote work? Because a manager, let's say, has 150 people under him. If you're going to ask him to go to 3 locations, because you try to do a hub and spoke to look after his reportees, I'm not sure how well that sits, right? We had a client discussion yesterday where somebody said, would you be able to provide 100% height adjustable workstations? I said, happy to, right? But please take my feedback. We've done this for a lot of offices. It's only the 40 years and the plus category degree which actually use standing workstations in India. Because culturally, we've kind of grown up at children saying, go to an engineering school so that you can get an air-conditioned job where you can sit and work, right? So the minute somebody has to stand and work, that itself is a deviation from a cultural standpoint. So to get back to that, I think India is different. You're also looking at scale, which is easy to do in India. Is a qualitative aspect which I think everybody on this panel is striving to achieve, whether it's through design, whether it's through grade A offerings, whether it's through flexibility, etc. But essentially, the aspect of how India looks at Agile, I think, will always be different compared to how the rest of the world looks at Agile, where it's more an amenity, and here this is actually be a principal offering.
The one comment I'd add to that, Sapna, which I feel resonates across markets, including India, including the rest of Asia, is we do feel that demand for flexible office space will continue to go up because now clients are seeking more optionality in their footprint, unwilling to commit for 6 or 9 years because frankly they don't know what their headcount may be like 1 year out or 2 years out, or who will come to the office when, etc. So the macros are playing out in favor of flexible office space. And even if you look at sheer numbers, you'll see that the number of transactions we did in the flexible office side of things, which is placing occupiers into flex space, was higher last year versus the year before, even despite COVID, despite various markets in Asia being shut for a majority of the year. So I do feel like it is a good time for this industry anyway.
Okay, fantastic. So as our panel, resonates that it is still a fluid state. A lot of things are happening, a lot of changes are happening, and everyone is getting, are adapting to new changes. But, our last panel was also very positive, very bullish on this segment, the co-working segment. And similarly here, all our panelists are very bullish on the future of co-working segment. So thank you all, Sidharth, for your wonderful moderation, getting the best views from our from our eminent speakers and all our speakers for being here with us, sharing their thoughts, sharing their time. Thanks, Partha. Thanks, Kunal. Thanks, Rishi. Thanks, Manas, for being here. Thanks, Neetish. And thanks, Vishwas, for being here and being part of this discussion, a very healthy discussion that we had.
Thank you, Sapna.
Yeah. Thank you.